A single mother helps a blind girl cross the street safely. The girl's millionaire father is surprised to see the love and patience of a stranger. Upon seeing the woman's kindness, the millionaire realizes what is needed to heal the deep wounds of his daughter and his own life. If this story interested you, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and tell us which city you're watching us from. We continue. The morning sun filtered through the half-open blinds of Olivia Parker's modest apartment in Millbrook, a small town nestled in upstate New York. As she had done countless mornings before, Olivia gently brushed her daughter Emma's hair while the 7-year-old swung her legs impatiently, eager to start her day. "Mom, can I help with the pancakes today?" Emma asked, her eyes bright with anticipation. "Of course, sweetie," Olivia replied, securing a colorful barrette in Emma's chestnut hair. "Just like we did last Sunday, remember? You're getting to be quite the little chef." Emma beamed at the compliment, rushing to the kitchen and carefully climbing onto the step stool Olivia had placed by the counter. There was something special about Emma's smile, a radiance that seemed to light up even their small, outdated kitchen with its peeling wallpaper and temperamental appliances. As they mixed batter together, Olivia couldn't help but marvel at her daughter's resilience. Despite their modest means and the absence of a father figure, Emma approached life with unbridled enthusiasm. The weight of single motherhood pressed heavily on Olivia's shoulders most days, but moments like these, flour-dusted cheeks and giggles, made every struggle worthwhile. After breakfast, Olivia dropped Emma off at school before making her way to Harvest Table, the cozy farm-to-table restaurant she'd opened 5 years ago. The restaurant occupied a converted Victorian house at the edge of Millbrook's main street, nestled between an antique bookstore and a family-owned hardware shop that had existed for generations. "Morning, Liv," called Tyler, her sous chef and longest-serving employee. "Delivery just came in. Those heirloom tomatoes from the Anderson farm look amazing today." "Perfect," Olivia replied, hanging her jacket in the small office behind the kitchen. "Let's feature them in a special. Maybe a summer gazpacho with that basil we've been saving?" The morning proceeded like countless others before it. Prep work, staff meeting, inventory check. The comfortable rhythm of a small business owner who had found her niche. By noon, the restaurant was buzzing with the usual weekday crowd. Local business owners, a few tourists exploring the Hudson Valley, and regulars who came as much for Olivia's warm hospitality as for her locally sourced cuisine. It was during the mid-afternoon lull, as Olivia stepped outside to adjust the chalkboard menu, that her life took an unexpected turn. Across the street, at the busy intersection where Main Street met Willow Avenue, stood a girl of about 10 or 11. She wore a pleated skirt and navy cardigan, the uniform of St. Catherine's Private Academy on the other side of town. But what caught Olivia's attention was the white cane in the girl's hand, tapping tentatively at the curb's edge. The child's face was a mask of concentration, but Olivia could see the subtle tremble in her shoulders, the hesitation in each tap of her cane. Without thinking, Olivia set down her chalk and crossed the street. "Excuse me," she said gently, approaching. Slowly. "Would you like some help crossing?" The girl flinched slightly, turning her face toward Olivia's voice. Behind darkened glasses, her expression remained guarded, almost suspicious. "I'm supposed to do it myself," the girl replied, her voice soft but firm. "Ms. Richards says independence builds character." Olivia glanced at the traffic signal, noticing the pedestrian light was already counting down. "Well, sometimes even independent people need a little help. My name's Olivia. What's yours?" A moment's hesitation. Lily Westbrook." "Nice to meet you, Lily. The light's about to change, so if you'd like, I could just walk alongside you. You'd still be doing it yourself." After a brief pause, Lily gave a small nod. Together, they crossed the street, Olivia careful not to hover or guide, merely walking beside the girl as she navigated with her cane. When they reached the other side, Lily turned toward her. "Thank you," she said, her face relaxing slightly. "My regular aide is sick today. The school called my father, but he's in meetings until evening." "Are you waiting for someone then?" Olivia asked, concerned about leaving the child alone. "The car service will come at 4:30, Lily replied, matter-of-factly. "I usually go to the library after school on Tuesdays, but I got turned around today." Olivia checked her watch, just past 3 o'clock. The thought of leaving this child waiting alone for over an hour made her uncomfortable. "The library's just down the block. My restaurant is right across the street. Would you like to wait there? I make a pretty good hot chocolate," Olivia offered, then quickly added, "Only if you're comfortable, of course. I could call your father to check if that's okay." Lily seemed to consider this, her head tilting slightly. "My father doesn't answer calls during board meetings, but I have his assistant's number." After a brief call to Mr. Westbrook's assistant, during which Olivia was subjected to what felt like a background check and was asked to text a photo of her business license, permission was granted for Lily to wait at Harvest Table until her car service arrived. Back at the restaurant, Olivia settled Lily at a quiet corner table and brought her the promised hot chocolate, topped with homemade whipped cream and a sprinkle of cinnamon. "It smells different," Lily commented, her hands carefully exploring the mug's contours. "Not like the powder kind." "That's because it's real chocolate," Olivia explained, pulling up a chair, "melted with warm milk and a tiny bit of vanilla." Emma burst through the front door just then, backpack bouncing as she raced in from her after-school program. She skidded to a halt at the sight of Lily. "Mom, who's that?" she asked, curiosity overriding manners. "Emma, this is Lily. She's waiting for her ride home. Lily, this is my daughter, Emma." The two girls exchanged greetings, Emma's exuberance a stark contrast to Lily's reserve. But when Emma asked about Lily's cane, something unexpected happened. Lily actually smiled, offering a patient explanation about how it helped her navigate. Before long, Emma had pulled out her homework, loudly sounding out words from her reading assignment while Lily, surprisingly, offered corrections to her pronunciation. As Olivia moved between the kitchen and dining room, she kept glancing back at the girls. There was something about Lily, a sadness that seemed too profound for someone so young, coupled with a maturity that spoke of experiences beyond her years. Despite her reserved demeanor, there were moments when the girl's face lit up during conversation with Emma, glimpses of what Olivia imagined might be her true personality beneath layers of careful restraint. At precisely 4:30, a sleek black car pulled up outside the restaurant. A uniformed driver entered, introducing himself as Mr. Westbrook's employee. As Lily gathered her things to leave, she paused, turning in Olivia's general direction. "Thank you for the hot chocolate," she said formally. "It was the best I've ever had." "You're welcome any time, Lily," Olivia replied warmly. After Lily left, Olivia found herself thinking about the girl throughout the evening service. There had been something in Lily's carefully measured words, in the way she held herself with such guarded dignity that tugged at Olivia's heart. She recognized pain when she saw it, had carried enough of her own to know its weight. What Olivia couldn't possibly know then was that this chance encounter, this simple act of helping a child cross the street, would become the crossroads where 3 broken lives would converge, setting in motion changes none of them could have imagined. That night, as she tucked Emma into bed, her daughter asked, "Can Lily come back tomorrow? She's really smart, Mom. She knew all the hard words in my book." "I don't know, sweetie. That depends on Lily and her father," Olivia replied, smoothing Emma's blanket. "I hope she does," Emma murmured sleepily. She seemed kind of sad. Maybe she needs friends. Out of the mouths of babes, Olivia thought, kissing her daughter's forehead. Little did she know just how right Emma was, or how deeply their lives would soon become intertwined with the Westbrooks. 2 weeks after their first encounter, Lily Westbrook had become a regular presence at Harvey's table. What began as a one-time gesture of kindness had evolved into an afternoon routine. After some negotiation with her father's assistant, a stern-voiced woman named Ms. Blackwell, Lily now spent Tuesday and Thursday afternoons at the restaurant, waiting for her driver while working on homework or listening to Emma chatter about school. On this particular Thursday, Olivia was preparing for the evening service when the restaurant phone rang. "Harvest Table, this is Olivia speaking. Ms. Parker?" The voice on the other end was deep, authoritative. "This is Alexander Westbrook, Lily's father." Olivia almost dropped the phone. In all these weeks, her communication had been limited to text messages with his assistant. Mr. Westbrook, yes, hello. Is everything all right with Lily? Everything's fine. I wanted to thank you personally for your kindness toward my daughter. It's come to my attention that she's been spending time at your establishment regularly. Olivia leaned against the wall, suddenly nervous. I hope that's okay. Your assistant gave permission and Lily seems to enjoy it. My daughter and she have become friends. There was a pause. Actually, that's why I'm calling. Lily's behavior has shown improvement recently. Her teachers have noticed she's more engaged. It's been a long time since she's formed any kind of friendship. Something in his tone, a careful neutrality. That seemed to mask deeper emotions, caught Olivia's attention. She waited for him to continue. I'd like to meet you, Ms. Parker, to discuss this development properly. Would you be available to come to my home this Saturday afternoon? I understand. You have a restaurant to run, but this would be quite important. Olivia glanced at her calendar. Saturdays were their busiest day. I could come after lunch service around 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock would be acceptable. I'll have Ms. Blackwell text you the address and Ms. Parker. Yes? Thank you, truly. The line went dead before she could respond. When Saturday arrived, Olivia found herself driving through the exclusive Riverview Estates, an enclave of palatial homes overlooking the Hudson. She double-checked the address Ms. Blackwell had sent, certain there must be some mistake. But no, the GPS confirmed she'd arrived at her destination, a sprawling limestone mansion set behind ornate iron gates. After identifying herself through an intercom, the gates swung open, revealing a circular driveway centered around an elegant fountain. Olivia parked her aging Honda beside a collection of luxury vehicles, suddenly self-conscious of its dented fender and peeling paint. A silver-haired woman in a tailored suit greeted her at the door. Miss Parker, I'm Helen Blackwell. Mr. Westbrook is expecting you in the library, if you'll follow me. The interior of the Westbrook home was exactly as imposing as its exterior suggested. Soaring ceilings, museum-quality artwork, and furnishings that likely cost more than Olivia's entire restaurant. Ms. Blackwell led her through a maze of corridors until they reached a set of double doors, which she opened without knocking. Ms. Parker has arrived, sir. The library was a two-story affair with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and tall windows overlooking manicured gardens. Standing by one of these windows was a tall man with dark hair threaded with silver at the temples. He turned as they entered, and Olivia was struck by his resemblance to Lily. The same straight nose, the same precisely set mouth. Ms. Parker, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat. Alexander Westbrook gestured toward a seating area comprised of leather sofas arranged around a marble coffee table. Would you care for tea? Coffee? Coffee would be lovely, thank you, Olivia replied, perching on the edge of a sofa that probably cost more than her rent. After Ms. Blackwell had departed, to fetch refreshments, an awkward silence descended. Alexander Westbrook studied her with an intensity that made Olivia straighten her posture. So you're the woman who's made such an impression on my daughter, he finally said. I haven't done anything special, Mr. Westbrook. Lily is a lovely child. She and my daughter have become friends. Nonetheless, you've accomplished what teams of specialists have failed to do over the past 3 years. You've gotten her to engage. He sat across from her, his posture rigid. Lily hasn't formed a meaningful connection with anyone since her mother's passing. The pieces clicked into place for Olivia, the girl's sadness, her withdrawal from the world. I'm very sorry for your loss, and hers. Alexander's expression remained composed, but something flickered in his eyes. Catherine's illness was unexpected and progressed rapidly. By the time the doctors understood what was happening, it was too late. Lily was with her at the end. He cleared his throat. She stopped speaking for 6 months afterward. When she finally did start communicating again, she was different, withdrawn. The specialists called it selective mutism combined with emotional regression. Olivia's heart ached at the thought of what Lily had endured. And her vision? Her blindness is physical, a rare genetic condition that began manifesting when she was 4. But her doctors believe the trauma of losing her mother accelerated its progression. She could still see shadows and shapes before Catherine's passing. Within months after, her sight was gone completely. He leaned forward, fingers steepled. "I've hired the best specialists in the country, private tutors, therapists, medical consultants. None of them have been able to reach her the way you apparently have." Ms. Blackwell returned with a silver tray bearing coffee and an assortment of pastries. After she departed, Alexander continued, "I want to understand what you've done differently, how you've managed to get through to her." Olivia cradled her coffee cup, considering her words carefully. "I don't think I've done anything special, Mr. Westbrook. I just treated her like a person, not a problem to solve. Emma, my daughter, did most of the work, honestly. She's never been one to let anyone stay a stranger for long." Alexander's expression softened slightly. "Regardless, the change is noticeable. For the first time in years, Lily asked to attend a classmate's birthday party next month. Her teachers report she's participating in group activities voluntarily." He set down his cup with a decisive click. "Which brings me to the purpose of this meeting. I'd like to offer you a position." Olivia blinked. "A position? What kind of position?" "A specialized role created specifically for this situation, part companion, part guide for Lily. You would help her navigate social situations, assist with her transition back into more normal childhood activities. The position would include generous compensation, of course, significantly more than I imagine your restaurant provides." Olivia bristled slightly at his assumption about her finances, accurate though it might be. "Mr. Westbrook, I'm flattered, but I'm not qualified for that kind of work. I don't have any training in special education or therapy. That's precisely the point. The professionals have failed. You, without any specialized training, have succeeded. You have something they don't, whatever quality it is that's helped Lily begin to emerge from her shell." He leaned forward. "I can provide you with any resources or training you might need. Money is no object where my daughter's well-being is concerned." Before Olivia could respond, the library door swung open and Lily appeared, her cane tapping lightly against the hardwood floor. "Dad?" Ms. Blackwell said Olivia was here. Her voice held an unusual note of animation. Alexander rose immediately. "Yes, she is, sweetheart. We're just having a conversation about some things." Lily made her way toward them with surprising confidence, navigating the room as if she'd memorized every inch of it. "Is Emma here too?" "No, honey, she's with a friend today," Olivia replied, watching as Lily's face fell slightly at the news. "Can she come next time?" "I want to show her my music room. I have a piano and I'm learning to play by ear." There was an eagerness in Lily's voice that Olivia hadn't heard before. "I'm sure she'd love that," Olivia said gently. "Maybe we can arrange something soon." Alexander watched this exchange with undisguised amazement, as if witnessing a minor miracle. When Lily's tutor appeared to whisk her away for a scheduled lesson, he turned back to Olivia, his expression newly determined. "Name your price, Miss Parker. Whatever your restaurant brings in annually, I'll double it." The offer hung in the air between them, tempting and terrifying in equal measure. Olivia thought of her struggling restaurant, the mounting bills, the equipment that desperately needed replacing. Then she thought of the early mornings and late nights she dedicated to building Harvest Table from nothing, the pride she felt in creating something that was entirely her own. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Westbrook, but I can't simply abandon my business. It's more than a source of income, it's my life's work." Alexander paced the length of the window, hands clasped behind his back. "I understand the value of what you've built. What if we look at this differently? What if your involvement with Lily was structured around your existing commitments, perhaps certain days of the week, with additional compensation for special occasions, school, events, social functions where having you present would benefit her?" Olivia considered this compromise. Her assistant manager had been asking for more responsibility, and this arrangement would provide much-needed financial relief without requiring her to give up her identity as a restaurateur. "I might be open to a part-time arrangement," she conceded, "but I'd want to be clear about expectations and boundaries from the start." "Of course." Alexander's posture relaxed marginally. "We can draw up a formal agreement with clearly defined parameters. Ms. Blackwell can handle the details." As they continued discussing logistics, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that she was stepping into something far more complex than a simple employment arrangement. There was something in Alexander Westbrook's intensity, in the desperate edge, beneath his composed exterior, that suggested the stakes were higher than he was letting on. Later, as she prepared to leave, Alexander walked her to the door himself, a gesture that seemed to surprise Miss Blackwell. "There's something I should tell you before you decide," he said, his voice lowered. "Westbrook Industries is facing challenges, the kind that could potentially affect everything, including this house, Lily's school, her medical care." He straightened, pride visibly reasserting itself. "Nothing is certain yet, and I'm exploring all options to stabilize the situation. But I believe in transparency, Ms. Parker. If you accept this position, you should understand that while I can guarantee your compensation in the short term, the long-term future is less certain than I would prefer." Olivia studied him, struck by this unexpected vulnerability, from a man who had initially seemed the embodiment of unwavering confidence. "Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that." As she drove away from the mansion, her mind swirled with conflicting thoughts. On one hand, the financial security Alexander Westbrook offered could solve many of her problems. On the other, she would be tying her fate to a family clearly navigating its own crisis, diving into emotional waters far deeper than she'd anticipated. What had begun as a simple act of kindness, helping a child cross the street, had somehow led her here, to the precipice of a decision that would undoubtedly change the course of her life and Emma's. The question wasn't just whether she could help Lily Westbrook emerge from her emotional darkness, but whether she was prepared for what that journey might cost her in return. Spring bloomed across Millbrook, bringing with it a renewal that seemed to mirror the quiet transformation occurring in the lives of the Parkers and Westbrooks. 3 months had passed since Olivia accepted Alexander's proposition, agreeing to work with Lily 3 afternoons a week, after lunch service at Harvest Table. The arrangement had settled into a comfortable rhythm. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, Olivia would leave the restaurant in Tyler's capable hands and drive to the Westbrook estate, where she and Lily would embark on carefully planned outings, trips to museums with tactile exhibits, music lessons that Lily had suddenly expressed interest in, and occasionally social interactions with classmates that had once been unthinkable. On this particular Friday afternoon, Olivia sat on a park bench watching as Lily and Emma fed ducks at the edge of the pond in Millbrook's Central Park. The spring sun warmed her face as she observed the increasingly confident way Lily navigated the world, no longer clinging to formality like armor. "She used to hate the outdoors," said a voice beside her. Alexander Westbrook lowered himself onto the bench, his usual bespoke suit replaced by casual slacks and a light sweater. Before Catherine's illness, Lily was always scaling trees, collecting bugs, making mud pies, typical kid stuff. After we lost her mother, she refused to leave the house for months. When she finally did, it was only with rigid structure and predictability. Olivia smiled as Emma guided Lily's hand to toss bread in the right direction, the girls' laughter floating across the water. Kids are resilient. They just need time and space to heal in their own way. "And the right guides," Alexander added, his gaze fixed on his daughter. "I've been so focused on providing specialists and experts that I missed the most obvious thing. She needed normalcy. Connection. A friend." He turned to face Olivia. "Thank you for that. For Emma, too." Over the past months, Olivia had witnessed gradual changes in Alexander as well. The initial stiffness in his demeanor had softened. He'd begun joining them for some of their outings when his schedule allowed, awkwardly at first, then with growing comfort. Today marked the first time he'd arrived unexpectedly, outside their formal arrangement. "Emma adores Lily. She thinks having a friend who sees with her hands is the coolest thing ever," Olivia replied warmly. "Though I should warn you, she's been experimenting with closing her eyes and navigating our apartment by touch. We've had a few broken dishes." Alexander laughed, the sound still holding a note of surprise, as if his own capacity for mirth remained unfamiliar territory. "Lily told me," She's been teaching Emma Braille, actually. Says Emma picks it up faster than I do. This casual revelation that Alexander was learning Braille caught Olivia off guard. When they'd first met, he delegated every aspect of Lily's care to professionals and assistants. The fact that he was now personally engaging with his daughter's world represented a profound shift. "How are things at Westbrook Industries?" Olivia ventured carefully. In their time working together, she'd come to understand the gravity of the crisis facing his company, an unsuccessful expansion into Asian markets coupled with a product recall that had sent stocks plummeting. Alexander's expression tightened slightly. "We're not out of the woods, but we've stabilized. The board approved my restructuring plan, which buys us time." He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture that had become familiar to Olivia, his tell when discussing matters that made him uncomfortable. "I've had to make concessions I never imagined making, selling the vacation properties, liquidating some personal investments. This is the first weekend in months I haven't spent at the office." "And you chose to spend it at a duck pond," Olivia observed with a hint of teasing. "Quite a change from board meetings. The company will either recover or it won't. I've done everything in my power to right the ship." Alexander's gaze returned to Lily. "But I've realized something these past months, watching you with the girls. Time is the one luxury even I can't buy more of. I've already missed too much with her." A comfortable silence fell between them as they watched the children. Olivia felt a strange twinge in her chest, a warmth that had begun to appear whenever Alexander showed these glimpses of vulnerability and growth. It was a feeling she hadn't expected and wasn't entirely sure how to process. "How's the restaurant?" Alexander asked after a while. "I've been meaning to actually eat there one of these days. Lily raves about your cooking." Olivia hesitated. The truth was, Harvest Table was struggling more than ever. The chain restaurant that had threatened to open nearby had materialized, offering flashy promotions and prices her small business couldn't match. The salary from Alexander had kept her personal finances afloat, but the restaurant itself was bleeding money. "It's managing," she said finally, unwilling to burden him with her problems when he had so many of his own. "The summer tourist season should help." Alexander studied her face. "You know, for someone who insists on honesty from others, you're not very forthcoming about your own challenges." When Olivia looked surprised, he added, "Lily mentioned a new restaurant chain. Said you were worried but trying not to show it." "Out of the mouths of babes," Olivia murmured, echoing her thoughts from months earlier. "It's been a difficult transition. They can afford to operate at a loss until they've established dominance in the market. I can't. Have you considered, if you're about to suggest a loan or investment from you, please don't," Olivia interrupted gently but firmly. "I value our working relationship too much to complicate it with financial entanglements. Harvest Table is my problem to solve." Alexander looked momentarily taken aback, then thoughtful. "Actually, I was going to suggest you consider expanding your catering services. Westbrook Industries hosts regular client events, currently catered by a company in Albany. Keeping business local would make more sense." "That's actually a good idea," Olivia admitted, slightly embarrassed by her assumption. "I've done small catering jobs but never considered scaling that aspect of the business. Think about it. No strings attached." He smiled, a genuine expression that transformed his normally serious face. "Though I should warn you, our CFO is notoriously picky about canapés." Their conversation was interrupted as the girls approached, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Dad, you came!" Lily exclaimed, her face lighting up as she recognized his voice. "Did you bring the surprise you promised?" "I did indeed." Alexander reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "Right here, just as I said." Lily's hands reached out, fingers gently exploring the contours of the box before carefully opening it. Inside lay 2 identical charm bracelets, each with a tiny silver piano charm. "Emma, come feel this," Lily called to her friend. "Dad got us friendship bracelets because we've been friends for 100 days. Emma gasped with delight as she examined the jewelry. "They're beautiful." "Mom, look." "I see them," Olivia replied, genuinely touched by Alexander's thoughtfulness. What a wonderful gift. As the girls chatted excitedly, Alexander leaned toward Olivia. "I hope you don't mind." Lily's been counting the days since they met, and she wanted to mark the occasion somehow. "It's very sweet," Olivia assured him, watching as Emma helped Lily fasten her bracelet, "though I'm pretty sure friendship bracelets are usually made of string and beads, not silver." Alexander shrugged, a hint of sheepishness crossing his features. "I may have overthought it. Jewelry seemed safer than the puppies Lily initially suggested." Olivia laughed. "Definitely safer." The afternoon stretched pleasantly as the four of them walked through the park, stopped for ice cream, and eventually made their way back to the pond. Alexander found himself relaxing in a way he rarely did, the constant pressure of his corporate responsibilities temporarily set aside. He watched as Olivia helped Lily identify different flowers by their scent and texture, struck by her natural ability to translate the visual world into experiences his daughter could access. Later, as Emma and Lily sat on a picnic blanket sharing secrets, Alexander and Olivia found themselves alone again. "Can I ask you something personal?" he ventured, his tone carefully neutral. Olivia nodded, curious about his sudden seriousness. "Emma's father. Is he in the picture at all?" The question, though not entirely unexpected, still caused a flutter of discomfort. "No," she answered simply. "He left when I told him I was pregnant, made it very clear he wasn't interested in fatherhood." Alexander frowned. "I'm sorry. That must have been difficult." "It was at the time," Olivia acknowledged, "but honestly, I've never regretted having Emma, even on the hardest days. She's the best thing that ever happened to me." "You've done an amazing job with her," Alexander said with genuine admiration. "She's kind, confident, bright. Everything a parent hopes for." Olivia smiled, warmed by the compliment. "We've figured it out as we go. That's all any parent can do, I think." She glanced at him. "Even parents with all the resources in the world." Alexander's expression grew distant. "Catherine was the natural parent between us. I was always the provider, the planner. When we lost her, I had no idea how to be what Lily needed. I just threw money at the problem, thinking experts could fill the gap." "And now?" Olivia asked softly. "Now I'm learning. Slowly." He met her gaze directly. "Having you in our lives has been illuminating. You've shown me possibilities I couldn't see before." The weight of his words hung between them, laden with meaning that extended beyond their professional arrangement. Olivia felt suddenly aware of how close they were sitting, of the warmth in his usually guarded eyes. For a brief, disorienting moment, she found herself wondering what it would be like to bridge the remaining distance between them. The spell was broken by Emma's excited call. "Mom, Lily's teaching me how to feel the wind change before it rains. Come try." As they rejoined the girls, Olivia felt a curious mix of relief and regret. Whatever had just passed between her and Alexander, that moment of connection, had triggered feelings she'd long since buried. After Emma's father abandoned them, she'd focused solely on survival and creating a stable life for her daughter. Romance hadn't merely taken a back seat, it had been left at the station entirely. Now, unexpectedly, she found herself navigating emotions she hadn't planned for. Alexander Westbrook had entered her life as an employer, gradually become something like a friend, and now she wasn't entirely sure what he was becoming. The realization was both thrilling and terrifying. As the afternoon drew to a close, and they prepared to part ways, Alexander hesitated by her car. "I'm hosting a charity gala for the Children's Hospital next Saturday," he said, his usual confidence momentarily faltering. "I'd understand completely if you're not interested, but I thought perhaps you might consider attending. As my guest, not as Lily's companion." Olivia blinked, caught off guard by what was unmistakably an invitation that went beyond their professional relationship. "I don't own anything suitable for a gala," she replied, immediately regretting such a mundane objection. "That's easily remedied," Alexander said, then quickly added, "But that's not an answer." Olivia looked over at the girls, still chatting animatedly as they waited by Alexander's car. In just a few months, these two families had become deeply intertwined, their lives and hearts connecting in ways none of them could have anticipated. Taking this step with Alexander would complicate an already complex situation. If it didn't work out, the fallout would affect not just them, but the children who had come to depend on their relationship. Yet despite these rational concerns, Olivia found herself nodding. "Yes," she said simply. "I'd like that." Alexander's smile, rare and genuine, sparked something warm within her chest. As she drove home later, Emma chattering excitedly about the day's adventures, Olivia wondered if she had just made the wisest decision or the most foolish one of her adult life. What had begun as a simple act of kindness continued to unfold into something far more intricate, a tapestry of connection that was reshaping all their lives in ways none of them could have predicted when Lily's cane first tapped its way into Olivia's world. The days leading up to the gala brought unexpected challenges. A pipe burst at Harvey's table, flooding the kitchen and forcing a 3-day closure that Olivia could ill afford. The catering idea Alexander had suggested was gaining traction. She'd already booked 2 corporate events for Westbrook Industries, but the immediate financial strain was taking its toll. When a package arrived at her apartment containing a midnight blue gown that somehow fit her perfectly, Olivia's first instinct was to return it. The elegant designer label confirmed it cost more than her monthly rent. But Emma's wide-eyed wonder, as she unboxed it, "Mom, you'll look like a princess, Ma," and the simple note attached, "No strings, just a dress," Jyoti softened her resistance. The night of the gala, standing before her mirror in the borrowed finery, Olivia barely recognized herself. She'd spent years defining herself by practicality and necessity, restaurant owner, single mother, provider. The woman reflected back at her now, with carefully styled hair, and the whisper of makeup seemed like a character from someone else's story. "You look beautiful, Mom," Emma said from the doorway, where she stood in her pajamas, ready for her night with babysitter Mrs. Rodriguez. "Thank you, sweetie." Olivia knelt to hug her daughter, careful not to wrinkle the gown. "You sure you'll be okay tonight?" Emma nodded solemnly. "Mrs. Rodriguez promised we could make cookies, and she knows how to play all the card games Lily taught me." She fiddled with the charm bracelet that hadn't left her wrist since the day at the park. "Are you and Mr. Westbrook going to dance at the fancy party?" The innocent question carried implications that made Olivia's cheeks warm. "There might be dancing, yes." "Good," Emma declared with the certainty of childhood wisdom. "Lily says her dad doesn't smile enough, but he smiles when you're around." Before Olivia could formulate a response to this observation, the doorbell rang. Alexander had insisted on picking her up, despite her protests that she could meet him at the venue. Opening the door to find him standing there in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, Olivia felt a flutter of nerves she hadn't experienced since high school. For a moment neither spoke, each taking in the transformed appearance of the other. "You look," Alexander began, then paused, seeming to search for adequate words. "Extraordinary." The simple compliment, delivered with such genuine awe, dissolved any remaining reservations Olivia had harbored about the evening. Tonight wasn't about social divisions or complicated arrangements. It was simply about 2 people stepping outside their normal roles to discover who they might be together. As they drove toward the city in Alexander's sleek car, Olivia found herself wondering if this was how Cinderella felt. Aware that midnight would eventually come, that reality would reassert itself, but determined to embrace the magic while it lasted. What she couldn't possibly know then was how thoroughly the evening ahead would transform not just her relationship with Alexander, but her understanding of herself and the unexpected path her life had taken since the day she helped a blind child cross the street. The Riverside Grand Hotel ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers and the shimmer of designer gowns as Olivia entered on Alexander's arm. She felt the curious glances and whispered speculation from the city's elite, wondering who this unknown woman was and what her relationship might be to Alexander Westbrook, one of New York's most eligible widowers. "Everyone's staring," she murmured, as Alexander guided her toward the champagne fountain. "Let them," he replied simply. "I'd stare too, if I weren't lucky enough to be your escort." His easy confidence steadied her nerves. This was a world she'd never imagined entering, a realm of old money and influence that operated by unspoken rules she couldn't begin to fathom. Yet Alexander's hand at the small of her back felt grounding, his occasional whispered explanations about various guests both helpful and endearingly conspiratorial. "Alexander, darling." A willowy woman in her 60s approached, diamonds glittering at her throat. "Oh, we've missed you at the club. And who is this lovely creature?" "Margaret, meet Olivia Parker." Olivia Margaret Harrington chairs the hospital board and throws the best 4th of July parties on the eastern seaboard. "How delightful to meet you," Margaret said, her assessment barely disguised behind social pleasantries. "And what is it you do, Ms. Parker?" "I own a restaurant," Olivia replied simply. "Harvest Table in Millbrook." Margaret's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rose slightly. "How entrepreneurial. And how did you two meet?" Before Olivia could respond, Alexander smoothly intervened. "Olivia has been instrumental in Lily's progress these past months. She's the reason my daughter is smiling again." Something in his tone, pride perhaps, or a quiet defiance, caused Margaret's expression to soften. "Well, that certainly changes things. Anyone who's helped that dear child deserves a medal, not an interrogation. Alexander, you must bring Ms. Parker to my summer gathering next month." As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself increasingly at ease. The initial awkwardness faded as she and Alexander danced, conversed with various guests, and eventually slipped away to a quiet balcony overlooking the hotel's manicured gardens. "You're a natural," Alexander said, offering her a glass of champagne. "Everyone's charmed by you." Olivia laughed. "I doubt that, but I am surviving, which exceeds my expectations." She gazed out at the star-filled sky above the garden. "It's a beautiful event. The hospital will raise a lot of money tonight." "It will," Alexander agreed, leaning against the stone balustrade. "Though I confess I've been distracted from my host duties. I find myself far more interested in my companion than the fundraising tally." There was an intensity in his gaze that both thrilled and terrified Olivia. "Alexander, I know this is complicated," he said softly. "Our lives, our histories, our circumstances, none of it is simple. But these past months since you came into our lives, I've felt alive again, and not just because of what you've done for Lily, because of who you are." Olivia felt her heart racing. "I've felt it too," she admitted, "but there's so much at stake, the girls, your company, my restaurant. We both have responsibilities that have to come first." "I understand that. I respect it." He took her hand gently. "I'm not asking for promises or declarations, just possibility, the chance to see where this might lead, without the structures of employer and employee between us." Before she could respond, the balcony doors opened and a harried-looking man in a tuxedo emerged. "Mr. Westbrook, I apologize for the interruption, but there's an urgent situation requiring your attention." Alexander's expression shifted immediately to concern. "What's happened?" "It's your daughter, sir. Your housekeeper called. There's been an accident." The world seemed to tilt beneath Olivia's feet. "Lily? Is she hurt?" "She fell down the main staircase. The housekeeper says she was asking for you, Miss Parker. She's being taken to Memorial Hospital as we speak." Alexander was already moving. All trace of the relaxed man from moments ago vanished. "My car's out front. Olivia, will you—" "Of course," she said, gathering her evening bag. "Let's go." The drive to the hospital was tense, the easy intimacy of their evening shattered by fear. Alexander made calls from the car, his voice clipped as he summoned specialists and demanded updates. Olivia sat beside him, her own heart racing with concern not just for Lily but for Emma as well. The girls had been having a sleepover at the Westbrook mansion, both under the care of the housekeeper, while Alexander and Olivia attended the U gala. "This is my fault," Alexander said as they sped through the night. "I should have been there. I should have—" "Stop," Olivia interrupted firmly. "Children have accidents. You couldn't have prevented this by skipping one evening out." "You don't understand," he replied, his voice cracking slightly. "The stairs, Lily knows every inch of that house by touch and memory. She never miscalculates distances or locations there. For her to fall down those stairs—" He trailed off, unable to complete the thought. Understanding dawned on Olivia. "You think she did it on purpose? That's absurd, Alexander. Why would she hurt herself deliberately?" He was silent for a long moment. The business difficulties, the changes in routine, you and me. Perhaps it was too much change too quickly. Maybe she felt neglected or confused. Or maybe she's just a child who had an accident, Olivia countered. Let's not create narratives before we know what actually happened. When they arrived at the hospital, they found both Lily and Emma in the emergency pediatric ward. To their immense relief, Lily had sustained only minor injuries, a sprained wrist, some bruising, and a small cut above her eyebrow that required 3 butterfly bandages. "Mom!" Emma cried when she saw Olivia rushing into her arms. "I was so scared. Lily fell and there was blood and Mrs. Davis was crying on the phone and—" "Shh, it's okay," Olivia soothed, holding her daughter close. "Everyone's okay now." Alexander had gone immediately to Lily's bedside, his face pale with concern. "Lilypad, what happened? Are you in pain?" The girl's face turned toward her father's voice, her expression unexpectedly calm beneath the bandage. On her forehead. "I'm okay, Dad. It wasn't as bad as Mrs. Davis thought. The doctor says I can go home tonight." "But how did you fall? You know those stairs perfectly." Lily's unseeing eyes seemed to look past him as she spoke. "I was looking for Emma's bracelet. She took it off to wash her hands and it fell. I heard it bounce down the stairs, so I tried to find it." Emma pulled away from Olivia, guilt written across her small face. "It's my fault. I should have picked it up myself, but I didn't know Lily would try to find it in the dark." "The dark?" Alexander repeated, confused. The hospital room fell quiet as the adults processed this information. Mrs. Davis, the housekeeper, had mentioned that the power had briefly gone out due to a thunderstorm, but she'd assumed Lily wouldn't be affected, since she navigated by touch anyway. "I didn't want to disappoint you," Lily said softly, her fingers fidgeting with the hospital blanket. "The bracelet was special. You got it for us because we're friends. I thought I could find it before you and Olivia came home." Alexander gathered his daughter gently in his arms, mindful of her injuries. "Lily, no bracelet is worth you getting. Hurt? Nothing is worth that, do you understand?" The girl nodded against his shoulder. "I was worried you'd be upset if Emma lost it. You've been so happy lately and I didn't want to ruin it." Olivia moved to the bedside, sitting on the edge of the hospital bed. "Oh, Lily, your father's happiness isn't dependent on bracelets or perfect behavior. It's about having you in his life, safe and well." "But he smiles more now," Lily insisted. "Since you and Emma came, he laughs and plays games and doesn't work. All weekend. I don't want that to stop." The simple observation from a child's perspective struck Olivia deeply. She glanced at Alexander, seeing the same realization reflected in his eyes. Lily had been monitoring her father's emotional state all along, carrying a burden no child should bear. "Lily," Alexander said, his voice gentle but firm, "my happiness is not your responsibility. And yes, having Olivia and Emma in our lives has brought joy to both of us. But you, just as you are, have always been my greatest joy. I'm sorry if I didn't show that enough before." Later that night, after Lily had been discharged and both girls were asleep in Lily's room at the Westbrook mansion, neither child willing to be separated after the evening's scare, Olivia and Alexander sat in his study, still in their formal attire, though Alexander had discarded his tie and Olivia had traded her heels for borrowed slippers. "I've failed her," Alexander said quietly, staring into the glass of bourbon he'd poured, but barely touched. "All this time she's been worrying about my happiness, modifying her behavior to keep me content. What kind of burden is that for a child?" "It's what children do when they sense a parent's pain," Olivia replied gently. "Emma does it too, in her way. She deliberately brings up funny stories from school when she sees I'm stressed about the restaurant, makes a show of eating every bite when we have budget meals at the end of the month." She leaned forward. "The question isn't whether our children will try to protect us. It's whether we create an environment where they feel they don't have to." Alexander set down his glass, meeting her gaze directly. "You're extraordinary, do you know that? You see through to the heart of things in a way I've spent a lifetime avoiding." "Not avoiding," Olivia corrected, "just focused elsewhere. The skills that made you successful in business aren't always the same ones needed for parenting. But you're learning. Tonight proves that." Tonight proves I still have a long way to go, he countered. But it also clarified something I've been circling around for months. He rose from his chair and came to sit beside her on the leather sofa. Olivia, I don't want to be your employer anymore. I want to explore what we could be to each other without that complication. Olivia felt both hope and apprehension rise within her. And if it doesn't work, if we try and discover we're better as friends, the girls are so attached to each other now, then we'll be the most gracious, mature former couple in the history of failed romances, Alexander replied with unexpected humor. We're both parents first. We know how to put our children's needs ahead of our own feelings. Olivia laughed, despite herself. That's a surprisingly pragmatic approach to potential heartbreak. I'm a businessman. Contingency planning is second nature. His expression softened. But Olivia, I don't believe it would fail. What's grown between us these past months is unlike anything I've experienced before. It's built on something real. Shared values, mutual respect, genuine caring. That's a foundation that can weather difficulties. As she considered his words, Olivia realized something profound had shifted within her own perspective. For years, she'd defined herself by her independence, her ability to provide for Emma alone, to build a business from nothing, to need no one. Yet the months spent with the Westbrooks had revealed that true strength sometimes meant allowing connections to form, letting others in, creating a tapestry of support that made everyone stronger. I'd like to try, she said finally, but with conditions. I maintain my financial independence. The restaurant stays mine alone, sink or swim. Alexander nodded. Agreed, though I reserve the right to book Westbrook corporate events there shamelessly. And we take things slowly, she continued, for the girls' sake as much as our own. Done. He took her hand, his touch warm and steady. Anything else? Olivia thought for a moment. Yes, when Lily's feeling better, we tell the girls together what's happening between us. No secrets, no pretending. They deserve honesty. Absolutely, Alexander agreed, though I suspect they'll be less surprised than we might imagine. Children see more than we give them credit for. 6 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, Harvest Table was busier than it had ever been. The expanded catering operation had brought in new customers, and Olivia had recently hired 2 additional chefs to handle the increased volume. At a corner table, Lily sat with Emma, both girls with school books open before them, though they were more engaged in conspiratorial whispers than studying. Alexander entered, brushing a kiss against Olivia's cheek as he joined her at the counter where she was reviewing invoices. The contractors finally finished the ramp. Installation, he announced. Now Lily can visit the restaurant without navigating those tricky front steps. Olivia smiled her appreciation. The accessibility improvements had been Alexander's idea, a practical expression of his commitment to blending their worlds. She'll love the independence that gives her. Speaking of independence, Alexander said, his tone carefully casual, the real estate agent called. The apartment above Bellamy's bookstore is available if you're still interested. It's close enough to walk to the restaurant, but would give you and Emma your own space in town. The question of living arrangements had been their most complex negotiation. Alexander had made it clear Olivia and Emma were welcome to move into the Westbrook estate, but Olivia had been hesitant to surrender the independence that had defined her life for so long. The compromise, a larger apartment in town that would remain Olivia's own property, had been Alexander's suggestion. I'll call her this afternoon, Olivia replied, warmed by his respect for her boundaries. Emma will be thrilled to have a bedroom big enough for all her books. At the girls' table, laughter erupted over some shared joke. Watching them, Olivia marveled at the transformation in Lily over the past 9 months. The reserved, formal child had blossomed into a confident, expressive girl, whose blindness seemed less a disability than simply another way of experiencing the world. She'd recently started performing piano recitals at school, her talent nurtured by the lessons Alexander had prioritized over business meetings. Emma, too, had grown, her natural exuberance now tempered with a compassion and awareness that came from her friendship with Lily. The girls were inseparable, their different perspectives on the world combining to create something stronger and more nuanced than either could achieve alone. They're quite the pair, aren't they? Alexander observed, following Olivia's gaze. They are complementary souls. She turned to face him fully. Not unlike their parents. Alexander's eyes warmed. I was thinking the same thing, which brings me to something I've been wanting to discuss with you. He glanced toward the girls. A more permanent arrangement for our family, all four of us. Olivia's heart quickened. Alexander. Not yet, he said, understanding her unspoken concern. I know we agreed to move slowly, and I respect that, but I want you to know that's where my heart is headed, where I hope we're all headed eventually. Before she could respond, Tyler emerged from the kitchen with a panicked expression. Liv, we have a situation. The Harriman wedding reception. Just called. They've doubled their guest count for Saturday and we're already at capacity with the Westbrook Industries quarterly dinner. I'll handle it, she assured him, giving Alexander's hand a squeeze before moving into crisis management mode. As she disappeared into the kitchen, Alexander watched her go with undisguised admiration. Later that evening, after both restaurants had been successfully managed and the girls were engrossed in a movie at the Westbrook home, Olivia found Alexander in the garden contemplating the sunset. Crisis averted? He asked as she joined him. Completely. We're bringing in rental equipment and I've hired 2 servers from the community college culinary program. Both events will go perfectly. She settled beside him on the stone bench. Now, about what you were saying earlier. Alexander turned to face her. I don't need an answer, Olivia. I just wanted you to know where I stand. I know, she replied, and I appreciate that, but I think I'm ready to have that conversation. She took his hand. These past months have shown me something I never expected to learn, that independence doesn't have to mean being alone. That strength can be found in connection as much as in self-reliance. That's been my lesson too, Alexander admitted. I spent years thinking I could delegate everything except business decisions, parenting, emotions, connections. You showed me what I was missing. The sunset cast a golden glow across the garden, illuminating the path where their journey together had truly begun months ago, a chance encounter that had changed 4 lives irrevocably. Whatever form our future takes, Olivia said softly, I know now it will be stronger because we've all learned to see differently. Lily taught us that vision isn't just about what your eyes perceive, it's about what your heart understands. Alexander's hand tightened around hers. She did. And Emma taught us that joy isn't something you achieve, it's something you choose, every day, regardless of circumstances. As they sat in comfortable silence, watching the last rays of sunlight fade, Olivia reflected on how thoroughly her life had transformed since that afternoon when she'd helped a blind child cross the street. What had seemed a simple act of kindness had rippled outward, creating connections and healing that none of them could have anticipated. In the distance, they could hear the girls' laughter floating through an open window, the sound of 2 children who had found in each other exactly what they needed, just as their parents had. 1 year to the day after their first meeting on that Millbrook Street corner, Olivia stood in the garden of the Westbrook estate, surrounded by intimate friends and family. Emma and Lily, both in matching lavender dresses, walked ahead of her scattering flower petals. Their charm bracelets, now adorned with multiple charms representing shared milestones, glinting in the sunlight. At the garden's center stood Alexander, his expression a mixture of awe and joy as Olivia approached in a simple ivory gown. Beside him stood Reverend Mitchell, the kindly older man who had counseled Alexander after Catherine's passing and who now prepared to unite these 2 families officially. Who would have thought, Alexander whispered as Olivia reached him, that helping a child cross the street would lead to crossing every boundary I'd built around my heart. Olivia smiled, taking his hands in hers. Sometimes the simplest acts of kindness are actually doorways to the most profound transformations. As they exchanged vows beneath the dappled sunlight, surrounded by the people they loved most, Olivia felt the final pieces of her heart, the guarded, protected places she'd kept closed since Emma's father abandoned them, finally open completely. The restaurant was thriving, her independence secure, and here beside her stood a man who valued her strength rather than seeking to diminish it. Most importantly, before them stood two beaming children, their hands clasped together, one who had learned to navigate the world without sight, the other who had learned to see beyond the surface of things, both of them teaching the adults in their lives lessons in courage, resilience, and unconditional love. Later that evening, as the celebration continued around them, Alexander led Olivia to a quiet corner of the garden. "I have something for you," he said, presenting her with a small velvet box. Inside lay a charm bracelet that matched the girls but with different charms, a tiny restaurant, a piano, a street crossing sign, and a heart. "Our story," Olivia whispered, touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "Just the beginning chapters," Alexander replied, fastening it around her wrist. "We have many more to write together." As he drew her into his arms, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that the path ahead, whatever challenges it might hold, was one they would navigate together, with 4 pairs of eyes wide open to the beauty of the connection they had found. In the simple act of helping a child cross a street, Olivia had found herself crossing into a new life, one where independence and connection weren't opposing forces, but complementary strengths, where past wounds could heal through present joys, and where seeing with the heart often revealed truths invisible to the eye. 4 lives, forever changed by a single moment of kindness, a reminder that sometimes the most profound journeys begin with the simplest steps. Fin de Historia. Dear listeners, we hope you were captivated by Olivia and Alexander's emotional journey. For more touching stories that explore the depth of human connection and resilience, we've prepared a special playlist with equally moving narratives. Find it by clicking on the link to your left. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Every day we bring you unique stories that